Thank you for tuning in to another episode of my Veterans to Success podcast. You probably know by now, my mission is to help 1 million veterans and entrepreneur business owners achieve the dreams, goals, and aspirations they deserve. That is why I created the Veterans to Success podcast, because I get to interview guys, men and women, who want to share their fascinating stories with you about their time before, during and after their time in the military, so you can benefit and overcome your challenges. So sit back, relax, and get ready to be mesmerized, astounded, and entertained. Welcome to another episode of Veterans to Success, the podcast where I get to speak with ordinary people with extraordinary stories. So if you're listening to this Veterans to Success podcast on the day of release, which is the 1st of January 2026, then I wish to congratulate you for completing the last 12 months intact and celebrating the start of this coming year by listening to this podcast. Whichever it is, Happy New Year to you for a brilliant new year you have ahead of you. Right, so for your information, this episode is a follow-on from the last, which originally released on Christmas Day 2025. During that podcast, I shared with you my top 10 tips on how to achieve a Christmas reset, and when we examine beliefs, focus, and empowerment for the year ahead, and how you could actually create the one big goal for 2026. In fact, for any year, right? We looked at 3, but narrowed it down to a priority of 1. So if you've listened to that, it's great. And if you're not listening to it yet, have a listen, because I think you'll find it brilliant. So coming back to today, we're going to be looking at the miracle of choice from 2 perspectives, actually. Firstly, I want you to consider how important the miracle of choice can be for you. 2025 was certainly an interesting year, wasn't it? For me, it was a year which started exceptionally well, and then on the 12th of April, disaster struck when I broke my neck for the 2nd time. Yeah, could you believe it? Right, and to find out more about how I made my comeback, listen to episode 88, when I share with you how it affected me, the struggles I faced, and how I overcame the personal challenges that ensued. Because today, right, it's not about me, and it's not about what happened to me in 2025, because we all went through some challenges, didn't we? Today is more about how we can work together and how you can help yourself in 2026. One thing I can share with you, though, is rather than, as I said, the woe is me story, I use the opportunity as a person, as a businessman, and a husband and father to grow. And I want to share with you the lessons I learned and give you some fabulous insight on a few things. How I believe choice helps us succeed. The second point, which is really important, I want to take you through and briefly explore the mind and its functions. Do not worry, it's not that heavy. We're going to keep it light. We're going to keep it on point and just move on so you can get the most out of it. Then we're going to look at the law of vibration and the law of attraction. So what's that all about? And then we're going to finish with the top 10 tips based on the program I have written, the Pathfinder Ultimate Success System, on how to use the miracle of choice to your advantage. How good does that sound for you? Well, by the end of the session, you will be feeling really good, inspired, educated, and motivated to take action and achieve that one priority goal you created during the last podcast episode, without fail, come what may. And that's the goal I mentioned, the podcast I mentioned a minute ago. While entering this positive state, the first thing for you to recognize is this: everything that is going on in your lives is a choice. Everything that's going on in your life is a choice. And when that really sinks in, as sure as eggs are eggs, your life changes. Now, even though the choice might be an unconscious one, and we'll go into that in more detail when we talk about how the mind works, it's still a choice, right? When you're feeling bad, and you might say to yourself, I didn't choose that. Difficult though it may seem, it was your choice. And you must take responsibility for it, because responsibility is really worse. Things start to happen. And there's not some emotional God, right, that can reach down and rescue you and say, that's okay, you'll be saved, there's no need to have any more difficult times. No, it's about taking responsibility. That said, we all have the tools to perform amazing things. So even though the God can't rescue you, you still have the tools to perform amazing things. You just need to use them. To start with, have a think about all the good you would like to enjoy. You know, what good would you like to enjoy? And that could be, and that ping was like a eureka moment. And it marked the fact that how much money would you like to earn this year in 2026? Now, don't be just stuck with what you earned last year. Stretch it, because what we're going to do is talk about choice a bit later on. I'm going to show you how you can actually get to where you want to be with that. So how much money would you really like to earn this year? Next, what kind of new friends would you like to meet? Happy ones, successful ones, bit of both, everything. People who friends that like to go on holiday, friends that share your hobbies and interests. What kind of new friends would you like to meet? Here's a great one. What new relationships would you like to develop? While you're thinking about that a minute, I'm just going to have my usual slurp of tea. Now, that could be personal relationships, intimate relationships, or business relationships. What new relationships would you like to develop? What type of business do you want to build? If you've got a business, how would you like to develop that? If you haven't got a business yet, what type of business do you want to build? In what sector? How big? How small? How many people will you have working with you? Will it be employed, self-employed, contractors, work abroad, work in the UK? What type of business do you want to build? Where do you want to live? Right, I love this one, because when I first left the military and I was living in Gillingham, Kent, it was a pretty busy town, the Medway area. And I decided at that point that I wanted to live and work in the country. And that's exactly what I do now. So where do you want to live? Do you want to live in the countryside? Do you want to live in a big city? Do you want to live in a suburban location? Do you want to live in a quaint village? Do you want to live in a town? So where do you want to live? And then, what special purchase would you like to make this year? Now, some of these decisions that you're making now don't have to happen all in the year. Like, where do you want to live? That could be presently, and then it could be in 5 years, 10 years time. It's about doing the small, medium, and long-term goals, or the short, medium, and long-term goals. So what special purchase would you like to make? Would it be a car? Would it be a caravan? Would it be a helicopter, a plane, a house, a second home, a luxury? Would it be a cruise around the world? Would it be a cruise in the Mediterranean? Would it be a cruise to the Baltics? Or would it be a one-time holiday with your loved ones, your family? What special purchase would you like to make? And guess what? With the right mindset, right, you can be who you want to be, have what you want to have, and with who you want to have it with. It's easy, providing you are prepared to put the necessary work in that is needed to achieve the dreams, goals, and aspirations you deserve. And the dreams, goals, aspirations you deserve, not desire. I talked about that in the last podcast. They're what we've just gone through. The first points that we went through. How much money would you like to earn? What kind of new friends would you like to meet? What new relationships would you like to develop? What type of business do you want to build? Where do you want to live? What special purchase would you like to make? And if there's anything else that you want to cover, feel free to do, because this is all about you. Simply because it's your choice. We as humans are the highest form of living creatures on this planet. We have mental faculties, right, that you wouldn't believe that no other living creature has. How so? Well, the main difference between us and other creatures in the animal kingdom is this: all animals operate by instinct. We, on the other hand, operate by choice. We have intuition. We can tune into the energy around us. We can see all the good we want, and it will come to us, providing we're prepared to do the right things, which is what this podcast is all about today. Because remember, my mission is to help 1 million veterans and business owners like you achieve the dreams, goals, and aspirations you deserve. So with that in mind, all we have to do is stay in harmony with it. It's so basic and so simple. So continue listening, and I'll share with you some of the secrets I have discovered as a consequence of the trials and tribulations, successes and failures, and peaks and troughs I've experienced during my lifetime, which have been a few, right? I believe choice starts with the mind. Your choice starts with your mind. So let's have a look at what I mean. The conscious mind is what we think with. The unconscious mind, on the other hand, has no ability to think whatsoever. It just accepts what you tell it. And it's heavily influenced by the unconscious mind, the phrase, be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. And it became popularized in modern times. The influences behind it and the key origins are said to be Aesop's fables, ancient Greece. The concept is rooted in morality tales where wishes backfire with variations, warnings, lest it come true, which is another version of be careful what you wish for. In the Islamic tradition, hadith, a saying attributed to the Prophet Muhammad, advises cautious in desires as Allah knows the outcome. Again, be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. Then the one that you've probably heard many times, King Midas myth, the Greek mythology. The story of Midas with his Midas touch, wishing everything he touched turned to gold. And there's even a tune that I used to play as a DJ, and that Midas touch was absolutely brilliant. I won't sing it because I'll save your ears. But the Midas touch, it turned everything he wished for turned to gold, leading to disaster, and it embodied the warning. And then bringing us a bit more up to date with Eminem, which I think he's a great, released some fantastic tunes. But in 2009 in particular, his song Careful What You Wish For uses the phrase to describe the dark side of fame, making it very popular and modern reference. In essence, right, it's a universal piece of wisdom about unintended consequences, formalized by ancient storytellers and popularized by modern artists. So have a think about that for a minute. This goes back, way back in Greek mythology and Aesop's fables, and it's just steeped with history. And why is that? Well, it's because a lot of the things we do and a lot of the things that I talk about, I'm just talking about the truth, because the truth never changes. Maybe some of the stuff that social media allows people to do and get out there, and here's me talking about that, and I'm doing a podcast. So, but yeah, there's a lot of untruths talked about. If we go back to the old wives' tales and the phrases that you used to do, a stitch in nine, saves time, and you've got to be cruel to be kind, and all of those stuff are steeped with history and have massive consequences and influences in a good nature. See, in psychology, the primary distinction between conscious and unconscious processes is based on accessibility and awareness, not strictly inductive versus deductive reasoning capabilities, as you may or may not have heard. Back a few years ago, there were lots of people going around and talking about this, but actually, I've done a lot of research and I found that the conscious mind involves processes you are actively aware of thinking, which is a given. Things like decision making, planning, and focusing attention. Because this, if you think about the conscious mind, right? The conscious mind, if it was a computer, which it is actually, but if it was a computer in the traditional sense, the type that you get a desktop computer on a laptop, right? The conscious mind is the processor. The unconscious mind is the hard drive. The hard drive has got everything in it from the day you were born. And for some people who believe in timeline therapy and other types of therapy and looking at pre-life existence, then before you were born. But if we bring it back to this, like, it involves both inductive, formal general conclusions from specific observations, and deductive reasoning, drawing specific conclusions from general premises, understandings. The unconscious mind, on the other hand, encompasses mental processes that occur without your awareness. You know, when you first learn to drive a car, right? When you jumped in and you were given the car keys and you said, okay, start the engine, well, you're going into panic mode now, aren't you? Do you remember? And this was all from the conscious mind, because you were having to think about everything you did. Turn the accelerator on. If it was a manual driven car, dip the clutch, put it in gear, control it with the accelerator, now take the handbrake off, hands on, all indicate, all mirror, all flipping it, and then it all goes into overload. Whereas now you just jump in a car, if you're driving, that is, and you just jump in, turn the engine on, and everything else is unconscious. It just happens. It's automatic. That's another way to think about unconscious mind. It's automatic. And it's the mental processes that occur without your awareness. It includes things like memories, learned skills like typing, riding a bike, driving a car, like I've just mentioned, autonomic bodily functions, and deeply held beliefs and fears. The question of whether choice starts in the mind is a subject of ongoing debate in philosophy and neuroscience. You know, because have a think about that for a minute. It's a debate. That's a great word, isn't it? In philosophy and neuroscience. You see, with modern science suggesting a complex of interplay between unconscious brain processes and conscious awareness, the conscious mind becomes aware of a decision after the brain has already begun the process. Right. And the key perspectives on this topic is the unconscious brain activity precedes conscious choice. Right. Forgive me if you think I'm getting a bit technical on this. You can always replay it. I think it's important for us to discuss this, because I want you to understand just how the mind can actually help you or prevent you from getting where you want to be. See, numerous neuroscience experiments building on Benjamin Libet's work show that the brain activity related to a decision can be detected milliseconds to several seconds before a person is consciously aware of making that choice. See, so we're going back to automatic. Stuff just happens automatically before the conscious mind catches up and thinks, hey, what are we doing? And this suggests that voluntary actions are initiated unconsciously, and our sense of conscious choice might be an awareness of a decision that's already been made by the brain's internal machinery. And you know, this is what advertisers on TV really depend on. Because when you're watching a film or you're watching a program, right, and your mind, sometimes, you ever fallen asleep in front of the telly, the TV? Well, you were hypnotized, believe it or not. So people who say, oh, I can never be hypnotized. Well, hypnosis is just a state of trance, right? So at that point, your unconscious mind is totally open, because you've gone into an autonomic state, and advertisers come in and tell you a little story. The brain is taking in this story, the unconscious mind and the conscious mind combined, taking the story, and they put it in such a way that it makes you want to go out and buy something if you need it, or maybe if you don't need it. Children, when you take a child shopping and they start going down a toy shop and they're taking toys off and you're saying, put that toy back, you shouldn't be playing with that. Well, they're only doing what they've been programmed to do by watching the TV advert, if you allow them to watch the TVs. And back in the days when I went to the cinema, when they used to have pathway news, way back, there were things called subliminal selling, which is illegal now. But just before, just in the break, or just at the first start of the break, they would show a Coca-Cola advert and then put a subliminal. It was a flick. It was only a split second that made people thirsty. It was just something that came on the screen quickly. And then what happened? Or an ice cream or something. And everybody would rush to buy from the vendor, who would stand there with the tray in front of them with ice creams and Coca-Cola. You didn't have to go outside. They just came at the end of each alleyway and sell the refreshments. So that's where that comes from. The mind as an interpreter. Also, some theories propose that the conscious mind acts more like a PR department or an interpreter, creating a narrative of conscious choice after the action is already set in motion by unconscious processes, which I've just talked about. That was seeing the conscious mind just catches up afterwards. Emotion and logic intertwined. Decisions involve a blend of memory, emotion, and logic with specific brain regions like the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, and they work together. Emotions are not just distractions, they are essential guides in decision making. Isn't that interesting? People who lose the capacity for emotion often become unable to make decisions at all, stuck in endless reasoning loops. I've met, thinking about that, I've met a few people who have lost the capacity to have emotions in my time. Well, we won't go into that right now. Choice, when it comes to choice, is both brain and mind, right? The brain provides the neural mechanisms and performs the math, weighing outcomes and calculating probabilities. You've heard the term pros and cons. While the mind gives these choices personal meaning and frames them within the story of who we are. You know, how's that going to affect me? What will that do? How is it going to affect other people? What's the and that sort of thing. Then, of course, we've got complexity and deliberation. What do we mean by this? Well, while simple or habitual choices may be largely automatic, complex high-stake decisions like a career move involve more extensive conscious deliberation and reflection and the consideration of future identity. So in summary, choice doesn't strictly originate at a single conscious moment in the mind. Rather, it is an emergent process involving a whole cascade of neural events, both conscious and unconscious, influenced by, guess what? Genetics, environment, emotions, and past experience, bringing it all together. And that's why some people are classed as wiser than others, because maybe they've had more experience than others, like older people. The older generation usually have more experience than younger generations. And that's why children have teachers and parents, maybe, who teach them things and operate as mentor and a coach. And then when they start an apprenticeship, they're being taught by someone who's already walked the walk, talked the talk, done everything that they need to do. And everything operates by the law of frequency or vibration, which is what I said we'd cover. You must raise your consciousness to the frequency you need to achieve it. Now, frequency is things going on. Like there's a frequency on this podcast. There's a frequency on the equipment that I'm using. There's a frequency on how it passes through. So it's received by the device that you're listening to. Everything operates by a frequency. A motor car operates by a frequency. A motorbike, a house, a painting on a wall, they all have frequencies, and everything operates by the law of frequency and vibration. You must raise your consciousness to the frequency you need to achieve. The statement, everything operates by the law of frequency of vibration, is a core principle of the law of vibration. This is a concept prominent in the New Thought movement, personal development, and various spiritual traditions. Scientific and spiritual perspectives are all included. The idea draws parallels from both physics and metaphysics. Now, why am I telling you this? Because I'm going to be coming on to something at the minute. You know that, and it's in the case notes anyway, you know that I created this Pathfinder Ultimate Success System, as well as joeteams.com, which is a membership site that I've done. And I've written books and other things. Now, I'm not telling you that to impress you. I'm telling you that to impress upon you that I created these to help you get where you want to be. And the reason I'm giving you this information to set up is because at the end, I'm going to be going through 10 principles from the Pathfinder Ultimate Success System, which will help you get where you want to be. And you see, the scientific basis for the law of frequency and vibration is in physics and quantum mechanics. Hey, there's a big subject. It is an accepted principle that all matter is composed of atoms and subatomic particles that are in constant motion and vibrate at specific frequencies, which is the reason why I said motor cars, paintings on the wall, tables, telephones, everything is vibrating at a specific frequency. And the perceived state of matter, solid, liquid, gas, depends on this rate of vibration. Even seemingly solid objects are vibrating at a molecular level. Right, so the scientists agree with me. It's not imaginary stuff. This is scientifically proved. And different frequencies of light and sound create the colors and sounds we perceive. Spiritual metaphysical basis, get this. In a spiritual context, this principle extends beyond physical matter to include thoughts, emotions, and intentions. That's why be careful what you think for, because you just might get it, is extremely important. And proponents suggest that positive emotions like joy and gratitude vibrate at higher frequencies because they're positive, while negative emotions like fear and anger vibrate at lower frequencies. You see, the law of vibration and the law of attraction are combined. The law of vibration is considered the foundation for the more widely known as law of attraction. The premise is that you attract experiences, people, and outcomes that are in harmonious vibration with your own dominant frequency. By consciously shifting your thoughts and emotional state to a higher frequency, you can indeed influence your reality and guess what? Attract positive outcomes, which is, you'll see where we're going now, because by the end, when I show you these 10 points, you're going to be really well equipped to do what you need to do. And the application of this is practices based on this law aim to raise an individual's vibrational frequency, your individual vibrational frequency. See, the points it covers is mindfulness and meditation, positive thinking and affirmations, gratitude journaling, sound healing, and energetic medicine. Though scientific evidence is largely limited in conventional medicine for these applications. But hey, I know of people who've cured themselves without medication. And by the way, I'm one, because I've been prescribed drugs. And then I've decided that by meditation, and by the way, if you're prescribed drugs, do not try this at home. I'm not saying it's not right to take drugs, i.e. prescribed drugs, which are recognized to cure an illness. I'm not saying stop taking them. I'm saying for me, it worked. Where I got to a stage where from mindfulness and self-hypnosis, I got to the position where I don't need to take that drug anymore, which is a lot better because drug chemical input for the short time is good if you need it. For long term, it may or may not have side effects which can be damaging. Right. So this concept, by the way, is summarized by a famous quote attributed to Nikola Tesla. If you want to understand the world, consider it in the terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. So guess what? When it comes to decision, the process of decision, once you make a decision to do something, the frequency changes, which gives clarity to fulfill the goal. So what am I meaning here? Right. So let's say you wanted to buy a house, and then you said, oh, it's too expensive. You've not made the decision to buy the house because you ruled it out. Now, what about if you said, right, that house is X amount of pounds and I want it? I'm going to do everything that I can to make sure I have that money to buy it. You've just changed the frequency because it gives clarity to you on how to fulfill the goal. And you might say, well, I've got to get another job, or I've got to work longer hours, or I've got to earn more money. I've got to do something, or a whole load of things. Maybe you say, oh, I'm going to buy it with someone that I know. We'll buy it together, then at least we can do it. And then we'll have an agreement that in X amount of years, they sell it to me or I sell it to them, and then they get another place. At least I'm on the housing market. You see, in the housing market, I should say. So the frequency changes, then you start to find out and think about how you can actually get it rather than how you can't have it, because that doesn't do anything, right? And whether that be you find and start working with a coach or mentor you need, for instance, that's what I love working with my clients, because I just see the change, the positive change. Or start educating yourself on the area you need to understand so you can do what you couldn't do before. Either way, you've educated yourself, you've taken positive action. And Gerd, let me see if I can say this right, Gerd Gegenrenzer, the German psychologist and behavioral scientist and statistician, if I could say that, statistician, writer, and educator, says before you can do something, you have to become the person you need to be to achieve it, or words to that effect. Whether that be running a business, running a marathon, or even running a family, right? All interesting and tough things to do. So let's now, I've given you all the science behind it, and it is all backed up. I've done a lot of research on it, and I know that it definitely works. So I want to move on to the miracle of choice, I believe. And it's the New Year's Day for the Pathfinder, right? You being the Pathfinder, right? So what do you think a Pathfinder does in the military sense? Well, if you're ex-military or still in the military, you'll probably get this a better chance of getting this correct than if you're not in the military. Right, so the Pathfinder is a specialist unit that goes in behind enemy lines, and they find out everything about the enemy, main supply routes, supplies, what they've got, ammunition, food, everything, what equipment they've got, how many men, women they have, what forces, the strength. So they find out as much information as they can and then send it back to the main battle group. So that means we're equipped. It's like a reconnaissance, if you like. And on the Pathfinder, which you can see in the background, if you're watching me on YouTube, if you're listening on one of the other well-known podcast services, you won't see it because it's audio. But if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see behind me that I've got the Pathfinder there, and it's made up of the reconnaissance, which is how getting into the mind and recceing what your beliefs are and what your limitations are. Then the strategic advance, which is the battle, when that goes into how you use everything in your life present day, and goes about changing you by looking at what makes you tick, what's holding you back, how to overcome that, and lots of things. And then Taylor and Charlie, which is in the military terms, where we come in behind everyone to make sure everyone's together. We've got our injured, sadly, and we replan our kit and supplies, so we're back to a fighting force. And in the context of the Pathfinder Ultimate Success System, that is where you record everything. What you want to do, your successes, where you're going, and of course it records your failures so you can look at how you can make it better next time. And it's a 52-week program, which is absolute. The feedback I'm giving is it's life-changing, right? So on the Pathfinder basis, and the opening phrase that I want you to think of is the map is not the territory. And New Year's Day, by the way, is not the start of a new life. It's the moment you stop and look at the map. Look at your map. Because every Pathfinder, now that you know what a Pathfinder is, every Pathfinder knows this. The map is not the territory. And without a map, you just wander aimlessly. So today isn't about racing ahead. It's about checking your bearings. Because no matter where you are right now, lost, stuck, tired, hopeful, uncertain, broke, rich, poor, out of a relationship, in a relationship, in business, out of business, one thing is always true. You still have a compass. And that compass is choice. And reflecting back on what we've already talked about, how choice can be influenced. And you can choose your direction, right? And every meaningful journey begins the same way. It doesn't begin with clarity, and it doesn't begin with confidence. Because, right, I don't know about you, but if you're anything like me, right, when my knowledge is low, my anxiety is high. Because guess what? Whenever I'm starting something new, right, obviously I've got ways to get around it now to deal with it. But certainly years ago, when my knowledge was low, my anxiety would be high. As I build my knowledge up, because every day is a school day, and I learn, and I love reading. I read a book every day. I listen to audios. I do everything that I can to listen. Continuous professional development, because in my job as a professional financial advisor, I have to keep on top of the tax changes, investment changes, which are a lot of at the minute. And even if I wasn't talking about the current government, in 10 years' time, 20 years' time, there'll still be a lot going on that people in my profession have to keep abreast of, so we can serve our clients the best way. Right. So it doesn't start with clarity and not with confidence. It starts with the first conscious step. So today we're going to walk through 10 simple truths about the miracle of choice. The kind that don't change your life overnight. So if you think you're going to get a get-rich-quick scheme, stop listening now. If you want to know how to do stuff that is going to change your life progressively, providing you put the work in, then keep listening, because it won't change your life overnight. It will quietly change your direction, change the outcome of what you're doing, and get you the result you really want. So let's set off together on our journey. The first one I want you to remember is choice is always available. See, even off the path, Pathfinders know this. Getting lost, I'll correct that. Getting temporarily unsure of your position because you're never lost, right? If you've got a map, or you know where you are, or you've got a good idea, or you know where you were at the last point, the last RV, and it's only between the last point and where you are now that you're not sure. And you can work out by how long you've been walking or traveling in the car, a place where you could possibly be in a particular area. So you're never lost, you're just unsure, temporarily unsure of your position. And even if you are temporarily unsure of your position, it doesn't mean the journey's over, right? You can't just spit your dummy out or throw the teddy out the pram and say, oh, I'm just not going anywhere else. Because that won't get you anywhere. It means you stay where you are and you won't get to where you want to be. So the journey's not over. It just means you've stepped off the path. And every step forward is still a choice. A step forward being, it could be recoup in the position, re-step in the position of where you've come from. It's still a step forward, whether it's backwards or forwards, because you're doing something. And you may not have chosen the terrain you're in either. You know, terrain being the government have changed taxes, the way we're taxed, or maybe the allowances aren't right, or the business allowances, or maybe they put national insurance up, employers' national insurance, or maybe they've put new taxes on stamp duty on buying a house. You know, and we're talking about real stuff here, not just make believe. So the terrain isn't just from the pacifier point of view. Yeah, in the military, the terrain is the surroundings, whether you're in a mountainous area, a forest, a jungle. But in this sense, it's about the business terrain, the personal terrain. So you may not have chosen that terrain. The thing is, you can always choose your next step. What you're going to do. So here, I want you to reflect on this while I just have a drink and lubricate my throat. Where in life have you assumed the path is blocked? Where in life have you assumed the path is blocked when really you just needed to choose a new direction? Think about that for a minute. Okay. Remember, you can always stop, pause, rewind. That's the beauty of podcasts. So we'll move on to the next one, because this is number 2. The pause is how you check your compass. What do I mean by this? Well, rushing, right, leads people deeper into the wrong terrain. Once you've discovered that you might be in the wrong terrain, rushing forward could just get you more lost. So the pause is how a pathfinder checks direction, you know, by using the map, orientating the map with the compass, making sure everything around is the terrain, the obstacles, and the ground generally, to make sure that they know where they are. I remember once when I was absolutely exhausted and I wasn't thinking straight, I made up the terrain, get this, when I was a young soldier. I made up the terrain to fit the map. And it wasn't until I had a rest, and then I thought, you absolute donkey, you muppet, what did you do that for? Nothing against donkeys, by the way. Donkeys are good. But in this particular instance, I thought, yeah, I was thinking like a donkey. And I realized that I had made things the way and shape they should be just because I wanted to be in a particular place. And you know what? I was miles from it. And when you're on foot, miles is a long, long time. How many times have you done that? Tried to make everything seem like it fitted into what you wanted it to be, only to find out later that it wasn't. So taking a pause, a pregnant pause, if you like, is how a pathfinder checks direction. They orientate themselves to the terrain, obstacles, and ground generally, as I've said. And before acting, which I didn't do back then as a young soldier, and before replying, and before deciding, that pause realigns your mind and allows you time to assess the situation fully before continuing on a route that could prove perilous and maybe have serious consequences. So that pause could be a lifesaver in business, in relationships. You know, have you ever started to get in a heated conversation with someone you love, and then you say that one thing and that's it? Whereas if you just have paused, maybe left the room, or if you've started answering an email and then sent it without thinking, and then it's all gone silent, and then a relationship's been broken. If you just pause, maybe taking 24 hours before you reply to that email that made you go a bit loopy, if that's a right word, but it made you feel angry, right? Or that comment, just pause and help you regain your bearings, and do that this year all the time. So number 3, Meaning is the story you write on the map. So two people can walk the same ground, right, and tell completely different stories. One calls it failure and another calls it training or research and development. See, it's all about whether you approach it with a positive or negative mindset. The terrain doesn't change. What's going on in the world is going on for everyone. See, whether governments are changing policies, there are conflicts going on, and I get it. There's some terrible stuff. Whether you're listening to it now in 2026 or 2036 or 46, there'll be conflicts going on around the world which are absolutely terrible, right? And there's I can't put it any way. But in the complex of this for you, what's your story? Is it failure or research and development and training? The terrain doesn't change, the meaning does though. I can proudly say I have failed far more than I have ever succeeded. And failure, by the way, always provided me with the most useful and memorable lessons. Mind you, thinking back to some of those failures at the time, I did not view it that way. I've got to be honest, right? It was pretty challenging. So, what story are you currently writing about your journey? And is it helping you move forward? How much is it helping you move forward? So, what story are you currently writing about your journey? And how much is it helping you move forward? I'll just take a drink while you think about that. Okay, the next one. Small steps are how paths are made. How cool is that? See, when you're at the front leading, there's no path. There's no pathway. How many times have you felt like, oh, I'm on my own here? I've got to lead by example. Because that's what we were always told as kids, right? Wasn't it? Lead by example, do the good stuff. And guess what? No one leaps across mountains. Not even the fittest person and the billy goat, the nanny goat, whichever. Paths are formed by repeated footsteps. There's a funny story, actually. Sheep in the Brackens, they always walk around the edge of the mountains and hills, which is absolutely daft, which is one of the reasons I might fall, because the guy in front was following the steps at night time because it's easier, because you're not on the moon grass, which is big clumps of grass where you can sprain your ankle easily. So it's easier to walk on the pathway. The thing is, because sheep are the brightest of creatures, because they haven't got choice, they just go for around the edge, and that's where it gets a bit dangerous. Anyway, no one leaped across mountains. Paths are formed by repeated footsteps, and the smallest daily choices in the concept of this, the ones that no one applauds. No one applauds the steps that go on behind the scene when you're working, and like making this podcast. Nobody saw all the research and development that went into it. I want to deliver this as valuable for you, right? The thing is, by taking these small daily choices, it creates the trail others eventually follow. A journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. So, what small daily step would move you forward if you took it consistently? What small daily step would move you forward if you took it consistently? Okay, and next, focus is where you aim the compass. A compass doesn't move you, it directs you. What you focus on, by the way, the burden you take determines where you head. Totally. Constantly scanning dangers makes every journey heavier. So, with correct route selection, you can avoid many of the dangers and travel freely. And because it's always about constantly monitoring your progress. So, on that point, what are you currently orientating yourself towards? And is it where you want to go? So, what are you currently orientating yourself toward? And is it where you want to go? Fantastic. Okay, we're on home straight now. And these last few points are absolutely critical as the first 5 that we've gone through. Remember, you can always reroute. Every experienced pathfinder knows and appreciates this word reroute or regroup, because it's choosing again isn't failure, it's wisdom. Right? Because if you just keep doing the same stuff for a different day and expect different results, well, that's madness, isn't it? You got to change something. The moment you notice you're off course and change direction, guess what? You're back in control totally. Now, that doesn't mean to say every time you come across an obstacle, you immediately change direction. No. I appreciate that the unexpected stuff happens. And I do as well. What it means is you are continually measuring your performance against the expected route time and making the appropriate adjustments to keep you as near on track as possible. And that's important to remember. And what I want you to reflect on now is, if you allowed yourself to reroute, what direction would you choose now? If you allowed yourself to reroute, what direction would you choose now? Now, I get it. Some of these questions have really, really in-depth answers. So whenever you want, take the time to pause. And I can tell you, the better you answer these questions and the more time you take, and it might be painful at times to answer these questions, but just crack on, crack through it, because at the end of it, it's like cathartic. You will feel as though you've released a lot of pressure because you've got it on paper and you're doing something about it. So congratulations. Okay, next, number 7 is responsibilities, carrying your own backpack. Right, I know this as well, because at times when I was a physical training instructor in the military, I used to take soldiers on runs, men and women, and I could tell after the first 10 minutes who was going to get to the end of whatever we did. And sometimes, because we've got to take the men and women together, we've got to start together, we've got to get to the end together. So it means that we can only go as fast as the slowest man or woman, right? So that means that sometimes the fitter people would take the backpack off them so we could get to where we wanted to go quickly. And then what they would need to do is take responsibility for the fact that they weren't as fit as they should be, and then go for remedial PT and get themselves fitter. Does that make sense? Right. So responsibility is carrying your own backpack, and blame isn't asking someone else to carry your backpack. And if you do, you've got to do something to get faster so you can carry your own backpack. Because responsibility is picking it up yourself, not because it's fair, because it's yours. It's your backpack. You know, like, remember you may or may not remember the song in the Second World War, pack up your troubles in your old kit bag and smile, smile, smile. Just get it in there, and then don't keep it in there, or do something with it. Because when you take responsibility to carry your own backpack, you seemingly move faster, lighter, and freer. So what are you ready to take responsibility for this year, so you can move forward unburdened? Because once you accept responsibility, a big change happens. You know, the choice, the frequency, the vibration, it all changes. So what are you ready to take responsibility for this year so you can move forward unburdened? Number 8, choose as the person you're becoming. I love this one. This is great, because remember I talked earlier about Gerda. Decide what you want and then become the person you need to be to get it, effectively paraphrasing. Pathfinders don't walk as who they were. They walk as who they're becoming. So because as the journey goes on, as you move, I remember when I've been on expeditions in the Himalayas, right? And looking back, not in anger, I look back to see where I've come from so I can pat myself on the back. And if we have to go back through the route because we are temporarily unsure of where we are in the future, I always know where my last point is and I know how to get back back there. But going forward, we're in new territory, in new adventures, right? You don't walk as who they were. You use that experience, certainly, but you're going into the unknown. So you walk as who you're becoming. Every choice is a vote for your future identity. Become stronger before acting is pointless. You need to act first and strength follows. Remember that. Becoming strong before acting is pointless. You need to act first and the strength follows. So what choice, here's a question for you. What choice would the future version of you make today? What choice would the future version of you make today? Okay, next. Gratitude is how you mark progress. Gratitude is how you mark progress. Because you see, gratitude isn't stopping the journey. It's turning around and seeing how far you've come. And I just mentioned that about when I was in the Himalayas. The Hansel and Gretel approach this is pathfinders who don't mark progress lose heart. Because have a think about this, right? You may be looking back on last year or years past, and you think about, depending on whether you're a positive person or a negative person, you may be thinking about everything that went wrong. Well, let's just flip that, shall we? Think about everything that went right. And you know what? If you have difficulty thinking about that, well, if you're still here today, it indicates to me quite clearly, scientifically, without shadow of doubt, that you're still alive. Right. So that means that every morning last year you woke up, or every evening, depending on what time of day you were working and what time you got up. But every day you woke up and every day you went to sleep. So congratulate yourself for that. And then every day your body was working, depending on how physically fit you are. But the fact is that heart was pumping, your lungs were working in some way, shape, or form. Your blood was pumping around your body. So that was going right. Congratulate yourself for that and be grateful. And the Hansel and Gretel approach is where you're looking back all the time and patting yourself on the shoulder and be thankful. Let's think about this. What ground have you already covered that you've forgotten to acknowledge for yourself? What ground have you already covered that you've forgotten to acknowledge? And number 10, one conscious step today. So what do I mean by this? Well, you don't need the full route, right? You only need to get the next step on the rendezvous principle, which is taught in the Pathfinder Ultimate Success system. A rendezvous is where you go from point A to point B being a rendezvous. That means the first RV, where you want to get to. Then you do the next RV, which is where you orientate your map, take the compass bearing, and off you go. Right. So one step taken consciously shortens the distance to your destination, doesn't it? Then another and another, and that's how paths appear, and might even change your direction if you want to, and you find that you're not going quite in the right direction based on what I've already talked about. So, what is the next right step for you today? What is the next right step for you today? And while you think about that, I'll just have a quick drink. And finally, choose the path. So this is your bonus point. Choose the path. This year will bring weather you didn't plan for. It will bring terrain you didn't think you were going to have to climb up. It will bring relationships that don't go the way they do. It will bring business challenges that you're not sure of or you didn't expect. It will bring changes in your employment. It will bring changes in the weather. It will bring changes in family circumstances. You're not without tools. You have a compass. You have a backpack. You have the ability to pause, reroute, and choose again. The miracle of choice isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It simply waits at every crossroads. Wherever you are right now, choose the path that leads you home to yourself. Then take the step. To find out more about the Pathfinder Ultimate Success System, visit www.joeteams.com/TP or go to the membership site joeteams.com to take advantage of the success resources I have created, especially with you in mind. Listen, you've been brilliant. I would wish you a happy new year for the coming year, whether it be the 1st of January 2026 or you're listening to this sometime in the future. You've still got a year ahead of you. And with the resources that I've created, I just want to help you get there, because remember, my mission is to help 1 million veterans and business owners achieve the dreams, goals, and aspirations they desire by or deserve by collaborating so they can have the success. Okay, happy new year to you, you Pathfinder, and have a brilliant day. Thank you. JoeTeams.com is a resource I have created to fulfill my mission to help 1 million veterans and business entrepreneurs like you achieve the goals, dreams, and aspirations they deserve. JoeTeams.com is jam-packed full of valuable resources specifically designed to help you on your journey to success. Visit joeteams.com now to find out how you can join and start your journey to success immediately. That's joeteams.com, JoeTeams, joeteams.com. And until we meet again, have a brilliant day.